Hi, I'm Jen. I'm the kinda old autistic lady. And the topic for today's video is how repetition as an autistic person is really useful in order to avoid a meltdown or a shutdown. So, a little bit of backstory about why I'm doing this topic and personally what it means for me right now. So, I've been having tremendous technical problems trying to make videos. I've tried everything under the sun. A few months ago it started with, the videos weren't how I wanted them to be, like the lighting wasn't right or the picture wasn't quite right, and it's really morphed into I can't get any video to work without playing around with stuff for several hours, like at all, like even a low quality video. I can't get them to work. Every time I reboot my machine or I plug in a USB device or I try to do anything with Bluetooth or anything like that, this computer just it won't make videos right. Either there's not sound, it's not meshed up with my picture. I've tried several different cameras, several different microphones, several different software packages, and even just doing this through the camera function of Windows 11, which is how I'm doing this right now, has taken me all night to get it to work because the computer's just being really not helpful to me right now. And I was getting very, very close to a meltdown. And I was basically in the midst of making a video that I knew I was close to a meltdown, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to, even if everything worked from a technology perspective, would never be able to post the video because it was me repeating over and over again how frustrated I was, how I had tried all this different stuff, how talking through things was the only thing keeping me from having a meltdown. And I was in this loop of just revisiting these topics over and over again for a long time. And when I went to make the video, like to actually end it, it was stuck in a different problem I'm having with technology, where the video, just to go from ending the recording to be able to use my camera again or to watch the video, it gets stuck in this processing phase through the software I was trying to use, and it takes several hours for it to finish processing. And once it did, the audio was crap, the video was crap. Like, even if I had just done an amazing performance, this video, it wouldn't have worked. I couldn't even stand to watch it because the video and the audio were so bad on it. So that got me to thinking, what can I do that is not going to be very time consuming to make a video using the lowest tech stuff available on my machine to just feel like I've accomplished something today? And that's what led me to this topic. Because for me, if you've watched my other videos, you know that I have only been formally diagnosed as being autistic for a handful of months, and a few months before that I self-diagnosed. But prior to that, I thought I was neurotypical and just really bad at it, and had never considered autism for myself. And one of the reasons I hadn't is because in reading through the requirements for a formal autism diagnosis, there was the whole bit about repetition. And I had this notion of what repetition looked like in terms of stimming. And I just thought, well, this doesn't really apply to me. Like, I'm not somebody that just sits and rocks, which I am. I was just suppressing it and didn't realize it. But anyway, at the time I was thinking, that isn't me. And what I have learned about myself in the last couple of days trying to make a video is that the only thing keeping me from having a meltdown was talking myself through how frustrated I was and really being on repeat and saying it to myself as many times as I needed that I was frustrated, that I had a right to be frustrated, that all I wanted to do was make a video, that all I wanted to do was not having a meltdown while making the video, that the whole thing was going to be garbage when it came out. Like, I just was on repeat saying this stuff over and over again for a couple hours. And it didn't occur to me until after I got to the point of realizing I wasn't going to be able to watch that video of, oh my gosh, I just kept myself from having an actual meltdown to where I wasn't going to function. I was close, but the repetition of talking through it is what kept me from the precipice of going there, or from having a shutdown, because shutdowns feel safer to me than meltdowns. And so I never know which one I'm going to go through when it happens. All I know is that I'm going to get to a point of not functioning in the moment if I cross a certain line. And I also didn't understand that that's what a meltdown or a shutdown was a long time ago either. And so not only did I not understand what was happening to me, but I didn't understand how to effectively manage it, or that what I was doing was actually under part of the diagnostic criteria. Because I always had this sense of shame about doing that repetition verbally. And nothing against my mom. She was a wonderful person. I love her to pieces. I loved her to pieces. She's been deceased now for over a decade. And I remember as a kid how when something would bother me and I would get really worked up about it and get on this repetition loop with her, she would just say to me, "You're beating a dead horse. You need to knock it off. You're driving me nuts," basically. And number one, I didn't know what the expression meant for a long time, so that was confusing. But when I did figure it out, I then carried this sense of shame. Like, well, if what I'm doing is so annoying to other people, which other people have had that reaction to me, it's not just her, then there must be something wrong with it. And I have to suppress it. And so I'm just now starting to realize how much shame I did carry from that, and why I do still suppress it when I feel the need for it to happen. And the shame is a big piece of it. And what I'm trying to tell myself in real time, as well as reflecting upon it to make like this video, for example, is that there's nothing wrong with being in a loop. There's nothing wrong with verbalizing over and over again whatever I'm in a loop about. If it's going to keep me from shutting down or from melting down, especially if I'm by myself and all I'm doing is talking to a camera and there's nobody around to even annoy, then it can only be a positive thing. I think where my mom was coming from is that perhaps, and this is just me speculating because I'm not neurotypical, I think perhaps when neurotypical people do that, it is indicative of something else. That it's not necessarily this calming thing and regulating thing that it is for autistic people. It could potentially be something harmful. What? I don't know, because I'm not neurotypical. But if nothing else, just annoying to other people and driving people away. And to just be really frank and honest about it, my dad did the same thing. He would get in these loops and would just say the same thing over and over again. And I would hear his unfiltered talk all day long. And it drove me nuts. And so, I may have learned that from him, either as a learned behavior or, I'll never know if he was neurodivergent or not, because he's not alive. And that generation of people, silent generation, to go around diagnosing oneself as autistic wasn't exactly really too much of a thing. But in hindsight, now that I'm middle-aged, and now that I know that I'm autistic, and now that I know that this is a self-regulating thing for me, I think it's helpful for me to make a video about it, because if I had known it earlier, I would have given into it earlier and used it as a calming, regulating thing for myself. earlier without shame earlier. And so if this is how you self-regulate or something similar to what you do to self-regulate, then I'm glad that the video is helpful. The other repetitive thing that I do when I get close to a meltdown or a shutdown lately is I have, as I've talked about before, one of my special interests are sheep and goat stamps, and I have several albums of them, and they're all in a particular order that makes sense to me, and they're always in that same order. Even if I take them out of the sleeves, they always go back in the same order. And when talking through things doesn't feel effective for me, or does feel like I'm caught in a loop that is not helping me to get to resolution anywhere, I will flip through the pages of that binder, and I might flip through all the pages in one binder 5 or 6 times and just look at the same stamps over and over again, not even going through my different binders. Just I'll pick one up and I'll do that. And I didn't understand why I was doing it like I do now after thinking about it a little bit, but it is very calming to me, and it is very regulating to me because I know what to expect on each page. I get excited about certain stamps that I like more than others. It makes me think of other things, like if I come across one from a different country, I think about, well, what do I know about that country? Can I picture its geography? What language do they speak? Like, I start thinking about that kind of stuff, and it helps to soothe my nervous system and keep me engaged with what I'm doing rather than continuing to build and build and build and escalate toward shutting down or melting down. So I'd like to hear from you, because I know everybody's different. How does repetition help you either to stay regulated or to go from dysregulation to regulation, or to avoid a shutdown or a meltdown, even if regulation, dysregulation, calm, even if those aren't the words you would use? What type of repetition feels helpful, and how long does it take? That's another thing that's really variable for me. I find that when I'm in that place of almost shutting down or melting down, when I get into the repetition, it takes me a very long time. In this case, even without the technical issues, it was a couple hours before I felt calm enough to just, this is what I'm going to talk about on this video that's actually going to work. This is how I'm going to organize it, how long I want it to be, and so on, to where I could get to that place. Because all I was thinking was that energy of being close to getting to a very uncomfortable place. That's what melting down really feels to me the most, is that there's something that is like ultimately really uncomfortable to me, that is like a certain point in my nervous system, and I want to avoid that because it's so uncomfortable. And so leave me a comment. If you're finding the content helpful, like and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching. Take care.